What if General Grievous lived past Revenge of the Sith Part 2? If you haven't seen Part 1, be sure to check it out first. And if you want to see the full fanfic, you could become a member of the channel, unlocking early access to all of my content. But let's get into it. In the shadow of the Empire's tyranny, Grievous, driven by a newfound sense of purpose and the relentless whisper of his past, embarked on a bold strategy to amplify his forces. Recognizing that his droid army, while impressive, was not yet a match for the Empire's might, he turned his gaze to the outlying systems, worlds and sectors that simmered with resentment and defiance against Imperial rule. Grievous, in his twisted form of robotic madness, understood the value of alliances. He set a course for the fringes of the galaxy, where the Empire's grip was weakest and the spirit of rebellion lingered. These outlying systems, often overlooked and oppressed, were ripe for the promise of change, for someone to lead them against their oppressors. His first target was a remote mining planet, rich in resources but crushed under the Empire's harsh quotas and taxes. Grievous's arrival was met with fear at first, his reputation as a ruthless warrior preceding him. But he spoke not of subjugation, but of partnership. He offered these people protection from the Empire, a share in the power to come, and a chance to strike back at those who had taken so much from them. Word of Grievous's proposition spread like wildfire. To these desperate people, the cyborg general represented a beacon of hope, however grim and unlikely. In exchange for their allegiance, Grievous gained access to their rich mines and the manufacturing capabilities hidden beneath the planet's surface. The miners, in turn, began to supply his growing army with the materials needed for war. Encouraged by this success, Grievous continued his journey, reaching out to more systems, each with its own tale of Imperial cruelty. Some worlds offered militias, hardened by years of oppression and eager for revenge. Others provided secret factories, technological expertise, and hidden caches of weapons. Each new alliance added a strand to the web Grievous was weaving, a network of resistance that began to stretch across the galaxy. As his forces grew, so did his legend. Tales of a rogue droid general offering a chance to fight back against the Empire inspired others to join his cause. Grievous became more than just a symbol of rebellion. He became a leader, a role he accepted with a grim determination, driven by the echoes of his past and the fury of his present. Yet, with each new alliance, the risk grew. The Empire, ever watchful, began to take notice of the ripples spreading from the outlying systems. Imperial spies and scouts were dispatched to investigate, and it was only a matter of time before Grievous would find himself facing the full might of the Empire. As word of Grievous's burgeoning rebellion spread across the galaxy, the Imperial High Command, under the direct orders of Emperor Palpatine, recognized the need for a swift and decisive response. They could not allow Grievous, a symbol of defiance against the Empire, to continue to gather strength and influence. A plan was quickly formulated, a brutal assault designed to crush the uprising before it could gain any more momentum. The target was one of Grievous's key strongholds, a planet that had become a central hub for his operations and a symbol of his growing power. The Empire dispatched a formidable fleet, led by one of its most ruthless admirals, with orders to obliterate all resistance. As the shadow of star destroyers fell over the planet, the people and the forces of Grievous braced themselves for the storm to come. Grievous, with his tactical awareness honed over years of warfare, prepared his defenses. He knew that this battle would be a pivotal moment for his cause. A victory here could inspire countless more systems to join his fight, but a defeat would spell disaster for his burgeoning rebellion. He rallied his troops, a mix of battle-hardened droids and fiercely independent militias, and set his plans in motion. As the Imperial forces commenced their assault, the skies above the planet turned to fire. TIE fighters screamed through the atmosphere, clashing with Grievous's makeshift fleet. On the ground, stormtroopers poured into the battle, meeting fierce resistance from Grievous's forces. The planet became a war zone, the air filled with the roar of blasters and the cries of the fallen. Grievous himself led from the front, a whirlwind of destruction amidst the chaos of battle. His cybernetic enhancements and tactical brilliance made him a formidable opponent, even against the overwhelming might of the Empire. The battle raged on, with both sides suffering heavy losses, but neither willing to yield. In the midst of the conflict, Grievous's forces demonstrated their ingenuity and resilience. Utilizing improvised weapons, guerrilla tactics, and the knowledge of their home terrain, they managed to inflict significant damage on the Imperial forces. Each small victory served as a testament to their determination and the strength of their alliance. However, the Empire's resources were vast, and their resolve unyielding. As the battle continued, the weight of the Imperial war machine began to take its toll. Grievous and his allies found themselves pushed back, their defenses strained to the breaking point. The situation grew increasingly desperate, and it became clear that this was a battle they could not win by force alone. In this moment of crisis, Grievous made a fateful decision. Rather than continue a fight they could not win, he ordered a strategic retreat, sacrificing key positions to save his forces from annihilation. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but Grievous knew that survival was paramount. His rebellion was not just about one planet or one battle. It was about the long fight for freedom against the tyranny of the Empire. As the remnants of his forces withdrew into the depths of space, Grievous looked back at the burning world they had left behind. The battle was lost, but the war was far from over. This brutal Imperial retaliation had only hardened his resolve and that of his allies. They would learn from this defeat, rebuild their strength, and continue their fight. In the wake of the devastating Imperial assault, Grievous and his ragtag force of droids and freedom fighters retreated to a hidden base deep in the Outer Rim. The atmosphere was heavy with the weight of their recent defeat. The losses were more than just strategic. They were personal, and the air was thick with grief and simmering rage. Grievous, his once impenetrable facade of cold, mechanical precision, now showed signs of wear. The battle had taken its toll, not just on his forces, but on him as well. However, within the fiery core of his being, a new determination was kindling. Grievous understood that this was not the end, but a pivotal moment that would define the future of their fight against the Empire. Gathering his followers in the shadowed hall of their makeshift command center, Grievous prepared to address them. They looked to him, their eyes filled with a mix of respect, fear, and expectation. Grievous's voice, modulated and resonant, broke the silence, echoing off the cold metal walls. "Warriors of freedom, allies of the cause," he began, his words cutting through the air. "We have faced a great defeat, but this is not the time for despair. It is the time for resolve. The Empire believes they have crushed us, that they have extinguished the flame of rebellion. They are wrong." He paused, letting his gaze wander over the faces of his assembled allies. "Our fight is not just for territory or revenge. It is a fight for freedom, for the very soul of the galaxy. Every world we free, every Imperial ship we destroy, every droid we build is a step towards our ultimate victory." Grievous's voice grew more intense, more passionate. "The Empire may have superior numbers and weapons, but we have something they will never understand, the unbreakable will to fight." He raised his arm, a gesture of defiance and strength. "We will strike from the shadows, hit them where they are weakest, and retreat before they can catch us. We will harass their supply lines, free their slaves, and undermine their authority. We will be the specter that haunts their dreams, the whisper of fear in their ranks." The room was silent for a moment, then erupted into a chorus of agreement and determination. Grievous had turned their defeat into a rallying cry, and his words ignited a fire in the hearts of his followers. In the days that followed, Grievous's forces began a series of guerrilla attacks across the Outer Rim. They struck quickly and without warning, disappearing into the depths of space before the Empire could mount a counterattack. Each successful raid boosted the morale of his forces and brought new allies to their cause. Grievous, the cyborg general once feared across the galaxy, had become a symbol of resistance and hope. His campaign against the Empire was more than just a series of battles. It was a war for freedom, a fight to remind the galaxy that even in the darkest of times, the light of rebellion could never be extinguished. As Grievous's campaign of guerrilla warfare intensified, so too did his reputation. The once feared cyborg general was now a beacon of resistance against the Empire. However, beneath the surface of this growing insurrection, a troubling undercurrent began to emerge. Grievous, driven by fragmented memories and a relentless desire for vengeance, was an unpredictable leader. His tactics were effective but often ruthless, and his mercy was a rare commodity. Among the ranks of his diverse followers, whispers of doubt began to spread. While many were grateful for the opportunity to strike back at the Empire, some began to wonder at what cost. Grievous's actions, while aimed at their oppressors, sometimes strayed into moral ambiguity. Planets liberated from Imperial control found themselves under the strict rule of the cyborgs' forces, and while they were no longer under the Emperor's thumb, their new situation was hardly one of freedom. These doubts came to a head after a particularly brutal assault on an Imperial convoy. The mission had been a resounding success from a strategic standpoint, crippling a major supply line to the Outer Rim territories. Yet, the collateral damage was significant, and many innocent lives were lost. The incident sparked a fierce debate among Grievous's allies. Some defended the general's actions as necessary sacrifices in the war against the Empire, while others condemned them as reckless and unjust. A small but vocal faction within Grievous's forces began to question their path. They had joined the cyborg's cause to fight against tyranny, not to replace it with another form of oppression. They feared that in their quest to defeat the Empire, they were becoming what they despised, that the cost of their war might outweigh the benefits of their potential victory. Grievous, for his part, remained focused on his mission to weaken and ultimately destroy the Empire. Yet, the growing dissent within his ranks did not escape his notice. His mind, a complex labyrinth of programming and organic memories, was already a battleground of its own. The doubts and fears of his followers only added to the chaos within. He was torn between the strategic necessity of his actions and the emerging realization of their consequences. As the rebellion continued, Grievous was forced to confront not only the external enemy of the Empire, but the internal strife among his forces. The tension came to a head when a group of his followers confronted him directly, demanding a change in strategy and a commitment to minimizing innocent casualties. The meeting was tense, with heated words exchanged and the air thick with the possibility of violence. Grievous listened to their concerns, his mechanical visage impassive but his mind racing. The tension within Grievous's ranks reached a breaking point following the confrontation over his ruthless tactics. A faction of his followers, disillusioned with the path their rebellion had taken, made the difficult decision to break away. These defectors were primarily those who had joined Grievous's cause seeking freedom from the Empire's tyranny, but now found themselves questioning the cost of their crusade under his unpredictable leadership. These dissenters were a diverse group: former Republic loyalists, independent freedom fighters, and even a few former Imperial officers whose disillusionment with the Empire had driven them to join Grievous. They shared a common vision of a galaxy free from tyranny and oppression, but they believed that achieving such a goal did not justify the use of indiscriminate violence and authoritarian rule. As they departed from Grievous's stronghold, these rebels carried with them the hope of forging a new path, one that balanced the urgency of their fight against the Empire with a commitment to the principles of freedom and justice. They traveled across the galaxy, reaching out to other like-minded groups and individuals. They spoke of building a coalition, an alliance that would stand against the Empire not just with military might, but with the strength of its ideals. The formation of this new rebel alliance was not without its challenges. The Empire's pervasive reach and the ever-present threat of spies and traitors meant that they had to operate in secrecy and often in isolation. They struggled with limited resources and internal disagreements about strategy and tactics. Yet, despite these challenges, the alliance began to take shape, drawing strength from the diversity and passion of its members. Meanwhile, Grievous, aware of the defection, continued his campaign against the Empire with undiminished ferocity. The loss of a portion of his forces was a setback, but it did not deter him from his mission. If anything, it reinforced his resolve to destroy the Empire, a resolve that was increasingly fueled by a personal vendetta against those he viewed as traitors to his cause. As the rebel alliance grew, so did its influence. Small victories against Imperial forces, coupled with effective propaganda highlighting the Empire's atrocities, began to sway public opinion. Sympathizers across the galaxy started to offer support, providing shelter, resources, and information to the burgeoning movement. The story of the galaxy's struggle against the Empire had thus split into two narratives. On one side was Grievous, the cyborg general whose relentless campaign of destruction continued to sow fear and chaos in the Empire's ranks. On the other was the Rebel Alliance, a fledgling coalition committed to fighting the Empire on moral and ethical grounds, striving to win the hearts and minds of the galaxy's citizens. The paths of Grievous and the Rebel Alliance were divergent but also inevitably intertwined. Their common enemy ensured that their fates were linked, even as their methods and philosophies differed. The galaxy watched as these two forces, born from the same desire for freedom but following different stars, charted their courses through the dark skies of a galaxy at war.